Hey, it's Ari. Now that it's the summer, I've been spending a lot more time outside, and it got me thinking about the environment, just how important it is that we're great stewards of the environment. And that led me to our manufacturers and all the different things they're doing to help impact the environment in a much more positive way, whether it's sustainable products, sustainable processes, power consumption reduction, and so many more things. So we put together a highlight episode, just highlighting the various things that these manufacturers are doing to help our environment. I hope this episode inspires you to understand the new way of manufacturing and how clean and green it really is, and maybe to change the way you do business and the way you lead your life to help our environment be greener and cleaner in the years ahead. Just a quick reminder for you to like, subscribe, and rate this podcast so we can get your feedback and know how to make it better. Today, I'm on with Jonathan Fife, CEO of Bright Feeds.
We have an industrial facility in Berlin, Connecticut that converts food waste into animal feed. The reason we're in business is because food waste is a huge environmental and economic problem. 1/3 of the world's food is wasted. So think about the cost of 1/3 of the world's food being wasted. And then about 10% of greenhouse gas emissions globally are caused by food waste. And when you look at the landscape for what exists to process all this food waste, there are a few other solutions, but there's a huge need. And we thought converting food waste to animal feed at scale was possible, and so launched the business to do that. Right now, this is especially the case in the Northeast, but really all over, is that there is shrinking landfill capacity. And there's, I think in the Northeast, about 5 years of remaining landfill capacity.
Come on.
States are not—
5 years?
5 years. States are not reinvesting in dated incinerators. And there's a story around why we launched in Connecticut around an incinerator closing. But because of that, the cost to dispose of waste has been increasing, over 10% a year.
Is that right?
Yeah, and it's going to accelerate. So it's this huge crisis that people aren't really aware about, but the costs are going up. The second is environmental. Where it's it's just a huge problem because 10% of greenhouse gas emissions globally are caused by food waste. So when you take those two things—
sorry, I'm going to interrupt, but
yeah.
You're saying 10% meaning the waste itself, or does that include sort of the cost of the greenhouse gases that are made in making the food, delivering the food?
Just the waste. So waste.
So in addition to whatever we spent to make the food that we then threw away, right? Like talk about waste. You're saying that the food waste itself causes greenhouse gases?
Yeah. So food sits in landfills, decomposes, and emits methane.
Okay.
And it will sit and emit methane for 90 years. It just sits and rots in a landfill, forever. And so that creates a huge problem. And it's one that states are, it's gotten a lot more attention as a key contributor to climate change, as a lot of people have tried to figure out ways to combat, some of the risks that we face from climate change.
I have Dennis Gagnon, president of Excel Dryer.
The environmental concerns, just think about after 2000, people are much more attuned to the environment and sustainability. And so again, this is a source reduction alternative. This is good for the environment. You're not creating those paper towels to dispose of them in a landfill. This is an energy efficient product. It uses 80% less energy, so you're not consuming unnecessary energy when you run a hand or run this hand dryer.
Yeah, and the best green products in my mind are the ones that also have a lower pain in the ass factor, right? So it's like, not only do I not have to throw things out, but I don't have to remember to refill the paper towels. I know if people throwing them all over the bathroom. I got to get someone to empty the garbage cans.
That's labor, too.
Right, exactly.
So the custodian has a lot of other things to do, and you're relieving them of that task.
I'm here with Don Drapo, president and CEO of Curtis Packaging. Here we are
and I'm learning as much as I can. I'm reading a lot, and there was kind of this whole green wave coming through. There was, kind of the inconvenient truth, and polar caps are melting, and there's a lot of things going on. And at the same time, I also read in one of the trade magazines the inception of a group called the Sustainable Packaging Coalition. Oh, wow, sustainable packaging. This is like right up our alley. And I found out that it was meant more for the companies. Some of the founding fathers were Starbucks, Estee Lauder, Nike, big brands. I called them up and said, I want to be a member. And they were thrown, blown away. And ultimately, we were the first privately held company and supplier to join this group. So now here's Little Curtis Packaging with a seat at the table with all these, Fortune 100, Fortune 500 brands. But I remember going into my father's office. And this is true. I mean, as my father always says, most of his stories are true. But this is a true story where I go in, and I could see that I was on the phone. He was building a house, and he was kind of upset and just frustrated with the builder. It was costing twice as much time. The usual. That's right. The usual just hangups that people have. And my father and I are very close. But he had a pair of reading glasses on. He looks over his reading glasses, and because I'm waiting patiently in his office, and he goes, "What?" And I laughed, and I said, "So how's your day going?" And he said, "Well, what do you want to talk about?" I said, "Well, what do you think if we run Curtis Packaging on 100% renewable energy?" And he looked at me and goes, "How much is that going to fucking cost?" And I laughed, knowing my father. I had all my paperwork. I went and I sat down, because at the time we didn't have any on-site generation. This was going to be 100% through renewable energy credits. And I was interested in doing that and saying, no one is ever going to make fun of you as an organization if you're environmentally responsible or socially responsible. And I used to have, Ben and Jerry, they would come literally to UVM and present to the business school. Mm-hmm. And this is, again, before Unilever, before that, when they're a privately held company. Yep. But I've always admired a lot of these organizations that are able to weave that into their company DNA. And from that moment on, I looked at Curtis as two of my favorite brands, a fusion of Aston Martin and Patagonia. I said, that's what I want people to think of Curtis Packaging. Super high end, not unattainable. Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe Aston's a little bit up there, but not quite a Ferrari, but right. Yeah. But at Patagonia, and that everything we do, we're going to try to be environmentally responsible or socially responsible. And we came up with, there's been all sorts of campaigns over the last 15 years, beyond the balance sheet thinking, really thinking about the triple bottom line, that people plan a profit side. And it really just grew. And it was so much fun to go through that and be the leader, because we had competitors that would say, "Don, knock it off. You're driving us crazy." Now we have to buy renewable energy credits, because what we did is we went to our customers with renewable energy. So now 100% renewable energy and carbon neutral. And we said, "Oh, by the way, customer, you can put these really awesome green messaging on your packaging. Won't cost you anything. But if you want to say carton is made with renewable energy in a carbon neutral facility, you can do that." So all of a sudden you're locking someone in, because once you have a message like that, you do not want to take it off. Right? Yeah. So that was great.
All right, I'm here with Tim Backus from Harcon Chrome.
Sometimes we'll make a decision because it's the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. From the standpoint, and being in the business that we're in, environmental is a big item.
Yep.
We spend a lot of money on it every year. And about 4 or 5 years ago, we decided to invest in technology that there's only a handful of companies really, I think, around the world that even use this technology for chrome plating.
Okay.
Chrome plating is notoriously considered dirty for the environment. We've been doing it forever. So we invested probably somewhere in the neighborhood of $900,000 to invest in a
small amount of money.
Yeah, zero emission technology for our chrome plating system. Now, what we didn't know at the time was how good it was going to be for a lot of other things that we do, as far as the quality of the coating, the amount of chemicals we use, the amount of electricity that we use, the amount of water that we use, all went down. So it was a great investment, but we didn't make the decision based necessarily on those things because we weren't really sure about it. We made the investment because we wanted to try to be more of a green company and have as much impact positively on the environment as we can. And we've done that many times over the years. And I think you have to do that.
I'm sitting with Frank DeCristina from Allnex right here in Connecticut. You talked about kind of investing in these areas to reduce waste or maybe eliminate it altogether. I think that's really interesting and sort of, I mean, we talk a lot about, scrap reduction, waste reduction being a good thing. What are you guys doing in that area and how do you manage that investment? What does that look like from a dollars perspective or a size of an investment? And how do you kind of look at the return on that investment?
Sure. So in one particular project, we have what's called a centrifuge that helps purify our product, mainly remove the salt from the product that's generated in the chemical process because the customer doesn't want the salt. They want the pure resin, right? Well, in removing the salt, a lot of times it takes more of the resin with it. Well, besides being a cost issue, you don't want to lose good resin. That resin ends up going in a wastewater treatment plant, have to be treated, and then discharged from the wastewater treatment plant. So we actually implemented a project to do a additional wash process in that centrifuge to remove more of the resin, retain it, sell it as good product, and not have it go to the wastewater treatment plant.
Let me take like a step back. So the process happens, and a resin was like a powder?
No, it's like a syrupy, almost like maple syrup. Okay. Consistency, yeah.
And so it's like so when I do the reaction, I'm going to be left with some part water with some salt in it, which I'm not sure where that comes from, but there's some salt in it. And
it's generated by the chemical reaction.
By the process, just salt's just one of the byproducts.
Yep.
And then I've got this like resin. So the idea is skim off or take off as much of the resin as possible.
That's right.
Leaving hopefully salt water behind.
That's right.
But the more resin I have in the salt water, the more I need to treat it?
Yeah. Absolutely, because that resin is full of oxygen and carbon-containing compounds that you don't want to put that into the environment. So you have to break it down, and we have a biomass wastewater treatment plant that basically eats the resin and breaks it down into
biomass water treatment plant.
Yeah, biological activated biological sludge treatment plant.
It's like bacteria or whatever that eats the stuff that's in the water.
Water bears are the best type.
Water bears?
Water bears, that's right. They're a special type of bacteria that you want to have because they do a good job of eating that resin. But the point is, let's not send them down there. Let's not send the resin to the water bears. We'll keep the water bears healthy when we need them, but we don't want them to have to eat too much resin. We want to keep the resin and sell it. And that's what this process did. It was about a $500,000 project that we installed a couple of years ago, and it's working pretty well and getting to the point where we're able to recover a lot more of that product and not send it down there.
Today, I'm with Bob Luther, co-CEO and founder of Lex Products. This is the cutting edge of a new, potentially a whole new world where battery storage of power becomes a standard add-on to like traditional power generation.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And so one thing I'm trying to piece together is, a battery is a unit of storage, right? Not a unit of generation. So how does the battery actually make it more efficient? Because you still need to generate, right?
Right. Where it makes it more efficient is that the generator doesn't have to be on all the time. Okay. Now, actually, see, the product that we're going to start shipping is actually for a construction site.
Okay.
And what it's powering is cranes. And when you think about it,
those giant cranes you see putting up like skyscrapers or whatever.
Exactly.
Okay.
Now, those cranes might actually be doing work like 4 hours over the course of a day where they're actually moving something.
Right. Sure, yeah, because you move a big giant beam and then it's got to stay there while someone welds it or rivets it or whatever. And at that period of time, all the crane's doing is stationary and doesn't need to move again. So
yeah, when it's actually doing the work is a pretty limited amount of time.
I got you.
But those really big generators are on all day long, right?
Sure, burning gas and whatever.
Yeah, and it's all about the fuel in these instances. So the battery allows the energy to be stored so that the generator only needs to be on when the energy in the battery is depleted to a certain level. And in this case, the power in the battery also gives an additional boost to the crane itself. It provides better power to the crane.
Why is that?
It just augments it. It's actually, for a brief period of time, you can do more power than the generator actually is capable of doing.
Because the battery output could exceed the max output of the generator. The generator can only do X amount of output, but if you charge up the battery, I can actually output more than the generator that's charging the battery.
Exactly.
So you could even get a smaller generator to trickle charge the battery over a period of time and then use that extra output from the battery to power more. So you actually could get double savings. I'm sorry, I'm like doing
triple
math here.
Yeah, double, triple. Yeah,
Really?
Use a smaller generator and you can still get more output.
That's amazing. Really excited to have Peter Mirabello on, Chairman and CEO of Metal Finishing Technologies.
But we've just worked really hard on a green story. And it wasn't like we showed up in this sort of noble way and said, we're going to have a green story. I was honestly looking at my income statement, looking where the big levers were. And I kept seeing energy, energy, energy. So we did the deal with the Green Bank to reinvest in the building. And then we took, if something's cost you $25,000 or $30,000 a month and you can take out 10% per month, it starts to be impactful, right? Mm-hmm. You're looking for levers. But you realized when you started to look at your business and you'd say, every dollar I spend, some amount goes to gas, water, and electricity. And we're watching those numbers drop. We just know intuitively that's a pretty good green story.
Yeah, it is a good green story.
So we pay attention to it. I don't think we don't talk a lot about this stuff. You don't see a lot in the press about it. We just think it's the right thing to do as a company. And so we've been doing it since 2017. And
you're able to do it. Sounds like you're doing it and it's good for the environment, but also good for the green in terms of your P&L.
Yeah, 100%.
I am really excited to have John Ulbrich from Ulbrich Steel on, Vice President of Distribution Group and Director of Corporate Purchasing.
One of the things we're really focused on is new products. When my dad was here, he mentioned that 20% of our sales on an annual basis is from new business. Business we haven't had in, let's say, the last 2 years. And I see that continuing. As products fall out because they either get outmoded, moved offshore, or habits in the consumer end change, or whatever our customers aren't doing anymore, we'll be filling that in with something new in the marketplace. Right now, a lot of it is on the EV side, the carbon capture side.
Carbon capture?
Yeah. So, I think this is one of the more neat things, we're trying to explore further is steel for almost like filtration systems where they can suck in carbon coming out of a coal plant and actually turn it into energy.
Really?
And so, when you look at the world of steel, stainless steel is really a huge answer for a lot of the green initiatives, right? Because it lasts forever. It's very recyclable. Most of the stainless steel we buy in America it's about 85 to 93% recycled.
Really?
Yeah. So they take all the scrap metal, melt it down, they throw in a few raw elements to make the chemistry that you're looking to make. But it's the recycling of stainless is technically very green. So now, the coal needed to actually power the power plant. Maybe it's a little different, but no. So I think these stainless for us is a big answer to allowing a lot of technologies to exist. Because you can't put, like I said, you can't put a carbon in there that'll corrode. Mm-hmm. If you put say like a 316L stainless, which is very corrosion resistant, into a filtration system, it'll last for a long, long time. So it's we're really working to position ourselves to where when these new technologies do come up into more of a mainstream, we're around and available with supply chains and with experience within informing to produce it for our customer base.
I'm really excited for today's guest, Molly Kellogg from Hubbard Hall. Is environmental planning and how you deal with like the excess chemicals, is that an important part of what you guys are doing at Hubbard Hall in the business?
Yeah, huge. And some of that we were forced into before we knew that what was bad, right? And then EPA came along. Actually, in 1991, when the Clean Air Act came out, our number one product was something called 1,1,1-trichloroethane. Number one product, and was regulated out of existence over a period of time. So it was a holy shit moment. What are we going to do? But being a small company, we could say, okay, we can develop a cleaner. So we went from a purchased product to a cleaner that we made that could do pretty much the same thing and have less impact on the environment. And same thing looking forward. I was meeting with one of our chemical engineers yesterday looking at, as we do product development of the future, what's our target for taking out the bad actors in those formulations? Or how do we develop products that may use less resource when they're used? So it can be used for our customers who make these things, electricity is their biggest cost, utilities. If we can find a chemistry that operates at lower temperature, then that reduces their impact too. So it's part of our future planning because of what I believe, and then again, thinking about the next generation.
I'm really excited for this week's guest of the Made in America podcast, Ken Madsen, president of Dimension Polyant. That actually brings me to a really interesting, topic, maybe a sensitive one, but I think an important one, which is as sales have changed and we've gone from whatever they made them in, the centuries, past. You mentioned cotton. I think at one time hemp was used for sales and all that, and we moved into more of the synthetic fibers. And you've talked about a lot of those, polyester, the one in the middle, that name I can't remember, but, carbon fibers. And we're talking about laminating, as we're saying all these things, and you've obviously now talked about even an air cleaner, a lot of you think about is what's the environmental impact of all these types of materials, right? These man-made manufactured materials. How do you think about the environmental impact, and how does Dimension Polyant think about it?
Well, we think a lot about it, Ari. And actually, driving out here today, I was just on the final call confirming that we got our carbon offset certificates. So we are officially carbon neutral in the two manufacturing plants of Dimension Polyant, the one in Germany and also the one in Connecticut. So that's something we are really proud of, and it's really important to us. You can imagine we are sailors, we are outdoor people, we love to be out in nature, we love to be out in wind, and we don't want to pollute. So we are proud of offsetting. Of course, we have some activities, and that's what we offset by buying certificates. Offsetting what we do pollute as a nature of simply having a heating device in our plant that use natural gas that we offset. So the next phase after we have taken this first and very important step is to see, okay, how can we now reduce? Because now we have numbers on it. Now we have metrics, and we will measure ourselves on our success. And the next steps is not just to offset, but to reduce.
I'm with Scott Livingston, the CEO of Horst Engineering. I know you've got a passion. We talked about it kind of a couple different times. You brought up on the podcast your passion for the environment, for conservation. Yeah. I mean, we talked about you being an avid cyclist. You bike to work very often in all kinds of weather.
Yeah.
How does that sort of green mentality, if you don't mind me using kind of maybe an overused current colloquial term, how does that influence the decisions you guys make at Horst to greenify or whatever what you guys are doing there?
I mean, green is a great quick way to refer to how you live. All right. So whether it's, my plant-based diet, or it's my commuting to work on a bike, or it's the trail maintenance that the organizations I'm involved with does, or it's the waste elimination that we have at work, all of it can kind of fit in that category. From a business perspective, I would describe it as responsible business. I recently spoke at the CBIA Sustainability Conference, and they've known of our business practices for years. Adam Ney, he has been involved in green business activities for many, many years that predate the kind of craze which followed the oil crisis, right? So, I mean, everybody was thinking green when oil was $100 a barrel. Sure. But it's been my life. I mean, I came into the outdoors through Scouts.
Yes, you're an Eagle Scout.
Yes, and that's what got me involved in the outdoors, and really that's where my passion for the outdoors and for conservation and the environment developed. In business, we tried to not use the term sustainable. I've been influenced by the company Patagonia. Their founder, Yvon Chouinard, wrote a book called Let My People Go Surfing. And then he wrote another book called The Responsible Company.
Yeah.
And I like that, think about it in those terms, the responsible company, because business is inherently wasteful. It consumes, it uses resources. All you can do is work to minimize that. So we do that in our business. We talk about it. We're going to do it even better when we have the new location. We got everybody under one roof, and we can really drive for some of those improvements.
Do you think that approach is compatible with an effective and profitable growing business?
Yes. I being a family business, and again, that long-term mindset and my own personal approach of constantly reinvesting, yes, we can do the good, right? What does that saying go? I'm going to forget it now. Doing good is good business, or something like that. There's very different little sayings, but I absolutely believe that you can contribute to the community, contribute to the environment, and still be a successful business.
Made in America with Ari Santiago is brought to you by Compass MSP.
Thanks for listening and spending some time with me today. My goal is to help build a strong manufacturing community, and it would be impossible to do without all of you.